Today, I'll tell you a dramatic love story between the assistant Mia Dolan and the powerful CEO Tommy DeVito. Mia Dolan was just a small, insignificant assistant at the glamorous award ceremony. She bustled around, catering to the artists, while Scarlett O'Hara, a second-rate actress, constantly bossed her around, annoyed by trivial matters. Suddenly, the notoriously cold CEO of WTD Entertainment, Tommy DeVito, appeared, causing everyone in the ceremony to stop and stare. When his eyes swept over her, Mia Dolan couldn't help but feel flustered. The past 2 years came flooding back, accompanied by fear and unease. She tried to leave to avoid seeing him again, but things weren't as easy as she thought. As Mia Dolan hurried into the elevator, Tommy DeVito immediately followed, stopping her with a powerful gesture. He cornered her, asking pointedly, "Did you think you could escape me that easily?" In the confined space, he approached her with eyes that were both cold and passionate, his breath on her ear, his words soft but suggestive. Despite her fear, Mia Dolan tried to stay calm, resisting his irresistible pull. Finally, pushed to the limit, she pulled out the recorder hidden in her pocket, threatening, "Mr. DeVito, if you don't let go, don't blame me for being ruthless. This is enough to prove you assaulted me, isn't it?" Tommy DeVito paused, then smirked, tossing Mia Dolan's purse aside and stepping closer. His sharp gaze seemed to overwhelm her as he quickly tightened his grip on her chin, causing Mia Dolan to cry out in pain, tears welling up. "Bastard, if you dare continue, I..." She struggled, but it only fueled the amusement in Tommy DeVito's eyes. He scoffed, "Fight back. How about next time you try topping me?" His challenging tone infuriated her, but before she could retort, voices sounded from outside the elevator. "What's wrong with this elevator?" "I think it's broken," the voice from outside grew clearer. "Is anyone in there?" Unable to continue his game, a disgruntled Tommy DeVito bent down, nibbled her earlobe, and whispered a threat, "Little vixen, you better not let me see you again, or I can't guarantee what I'll do." With that, he casually straightened her clothes, smoothed his own attire, and slowly walked out, leaving Mia Dolan in the elevator, her hands clenched into fists. His distinctive scent lingered, leaving her both terrified and furious. Back in the makeup room, Mia Dolan quickly fell back into the whirlwind of catering to Scarlett O'Hara, the notoriously demanding and bossy actress. When Scarlett requested plum red lipstick for the commercial, Mia Dolan frantically searched through the jumbled bags. "There's no plum red, only pink," she replied with difficulty. Scarlett frowned, her voice full of irritation, "My commercial absolutely must use plum red, or it won't work." Mia Dolan could only lower her head and continue searching, but just then, the door to the makeup room opened and a regal figure entered. It was Regina George, the top star, with an arrogant air. Regina didn't even acknowledge Scarlett O'Hara, only glancing at her with disdain. The director rushed over, fawningly greeting her. "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and do Regina's makeup." "Filming is about to start," the director urged, but Regina simply said coldly, "No need, I have my own makeup artist." Someone who only does makeup for third-rate actresses probably doesn't have any real skills anyway. Regina George's words instantly enraged Scarlett O'Hara, who jumped up, biting her lip furiously. "A third-rate actress? Who do you think you are? Don't think you can look down on me just because you're some lowlife who slept her way to the top." Mia Dolan, standing beside her, could only silently tug on Scarlett's arm to restrain her, but she continued to yell. Regina George simply smiled coldly, looking directly at Scarlett O'Hara with provocative eyes. "Lon, contact my lawyer. Sue her for slander." Seeing this, Scarlett became even angrier, growling, "Don't you dare." But Regina George remained calm, standing up and crossing her arms as she looked at Scarlett, her voice indifferent. "Everyone just heard you insult me. Are you trying to deny it?" Scarlett O'Hara stammered, her face pale, but she couldn't utter a word. Regina gently admired her bright red nails, then turned to mock Scarlett. "You say I'm a kept woman? At least someone's willing to keep me. What about you? Just looking at you makes me want to puke. Regina's sharp words made Scarlett's face turn white. Just as she was about to retort, Hong quickly pulled her back, whispering something that caused Scarlett's expression to change rapidly, from shock to fury. She couldn't hold back any longer, turning sharply to the director, her voice full of resentment. "Director. Didn't you say this commercial was mine? Why are you changing it now?" But the director just shrugged, his words cold. "The client requested Regina George. I can't do anything about it. Besides, she's much more famous than you. You should know your place." Scarlett became even more furious, shouting, "You're breaching the contract. I don't care. You have to give me an explanation." The director didn't bother to pay attention, only replying perfunctorily, "My lawyer will talk to you." Then, he quickly turned back to Regina George, as if Scarlett had never existed. Scarlett stood there, stomping her foot in anger, cursing everyone under her breath as scoundrels. Just as the tense argument seemed to die down, Scarlett and Hong began to gush about Tommy DeVito, the powerful CEO of WTD, the Diamond Prince, in the hearts of countless girls. Mia Dolan listened, feeling uneasy. She had just avoided him in the elevator, and now she had to hear these admiring words about this young master. Seeing Mia Dolan's blank expression, Hong explained, "You don't know young Master DeVito? The CEO of WTD? He's a legend in the industry. Everyone knows his handsome face and the power of the DeVito family." Mia Dolan's heart trembled. It really was him, the most terrifying man she had ever met. Just as the atmosphere in the makeup room gradually calmed down, a sudden commotion erupted outside, with cries of surprise echoing endlessly, signaling that something unexpected was about to happen. The story continued as 2 rows of bodyguards cleared the way for a dazzling man in a designer suit to enter. It was none other than Tommy DeVito. The crowd's screams were incessant, but Tommy DeVito maintained a faint, mesmerizing smile. While Hong and Scarlett O'Hara stood mesmerized, Mia Dolan hid behind them, hoping he wouldn't see her. But surprisingly, Tommy DeVito walked towards her, looked directly at her, and took her hand in front of everyone. Scarlett was stunned, and even Regina George, the A-list star who had just arrived, was astonished to see the man she admired holding the hand of a young, unfamiliar girl. Mia Dolan struggled, but Tommy DeVito remained unfazed, even brazenly snatching her purse and dumping its contents onto the floor. After rummaging through it, he pulled out her camera and wiped the data. Despite the stunned gazes of everyone present, Tommy DeVito maintained a mocking smirk. Finally snapping, Mia Dolan cursed him, "Bastard." Everyone held their breath at her audacious outburst. Tommy DeVito was notoriously powerful, yet this small assistant dared to curse him to his face. Regina George was shocked, a mixture of fury and envy churning within her, but what surprised her most was the look of amusement in Tommy DeVito's eyes as he stared at Mia Dolan. Immediately after, Tommy DeVito stepped closer, tilting Mia Dolan's chin upwards with a suggestive look in his eyes. "New here? How new?" Facing his arrogant gaze and playful smirk, Mia Dolan angrily swatted his hand away, running off after spitting out a chilling, "Get lost." Mia Dolan's unexpected reaction stunned everyone into silence. Regina George, standing nearby, was coldly shoved aside by Tommy DeVito as she tried to approach him, a clear sign of her fall from grace in front of everyone. In her fury, Regina George hissed, while Scarlett took the opportunity to sneer, relishing the A-list star's humiliation. Out on the street, Mia Dolan wandered alone, tears welling up in her eyes from anger and helplessness. But just as she thought she had escaped, a car screeched to a halt in front of her, and a middle-aged man in a sharp suit stepped out, offering her a gentle smile. Yeah, Butler Alfred, a fixture in every important meeting, appeared in Mia Dolan's life as suddenly as a gust of wind. He wasn't just there to announce her return, but to act as a bridge between her and her grandfather, the man Yaya always treated with caution. Mia Dolan, returning for the first time in a long while, seemed less than thrilled to hear that the old man had missed her so much he'd sent someone to fetch her. So, she got into the car, her stomach churning with anxiety, but she dared not speak. Her home. The place she had considered paradise as a child now felt like a gloomy labyrinth. As the car stopped in front of the mansion, she couldn't help but feel a pang of nostalgia, as if she had forgotten what it felt like to belong there. Something was definitely wrong. Upon arrival, she was pulled inside by Aunt Wang, and that's when the darkness appeared. Tommy DeVito, the man she avoided eye contact with every time they met, was sitting beside her grandfather like someone who held all the secrets and complexities of her past. It was like a mental chess match, between genuine affection and ambiguous glances. Before she could even catch her breath, she was dragged to the dining table, where everything was luxurious, yet couldn't mask the tension in the air. Mia Dolan, always trying to hide her emotions, bowed her head and apologized, but her face remained sullen. Tommy DeVito, like an indispensable ex-lover, casually gave her a meaningful look, as if he was waiting for something. Genuine affection, perhaps. Or just a game. It certainly wasn't a light meal. After dinner, she wanted to flee, but her grandfather wouldn't allow it. And then, Tommy DeVito appeared again, like a phantom in a dark car. Unbelievable. She thought she had escaped him, but he had followed her all the way there, with the excuse of protecting her from the darkness. But in Yeye's eyes, he was the darkness itself, the one who robbed her of her peace. Back at her apartment, she thought she was safe, but as soon as she opened the door, Tommy DeVito slammed it shut, trapping her against it. His eyes were sharp, merciless. Yeye, unable to bear it any longer, yelled, "Enough. Get out." Tommy DeVito walked in, his eyes sharp as knives, his breath blowing on Mia Dolan's face, a tense and suffocating space, filled with the smell of ambiguity. She panicked, recalling the past days when he violated her, gasping for breath, pushing him away and firmly declaring, "We have no relationship anymore." But he just turned on the light gently, making the whole room suddenly filled with nobility, as if this space had belonged to him for a long time. He didn't need many words. A low-voiced, "Let's talk," from Tommy DeVito tightened the knot in Mia Dolan's stomach. She tried to keep her distance, but he closed the gap, pulling her into a tight embrace. The world spun in a dizzying rush. His eyes devoured her, his strong hand gripped her chin, his smile predatory. When Mia Dolan cried, "Don't touch me," he responded with a mocking, "Only he can." As if nothing could stop him, his kiss descended, a forceful, inescapable pressure. His brutal possession left her breathless, trapped. The night wore on, a relentless torment. When Mia Dolan finally succumbed to exhaustion, falling asleep in a haze of pain and resentment, Tommy DeVito watched her, his finger tracing the bruised outline of her lips, as if it had all been a game. Mia Dolan's delicate brows furrowed in discomfort. Then, Tommy DeVito, the dreamboat, suddenly kissed her, light as a feather. But don't mistake it for sweetness. His phone rang, and he casually strolled into the bathroom, as if she, and everything else, ceased to exist. Mia Dolan answered the phone and jolted awake. Bad news? She scrambled into her clothes, ignoring the ache in her body, the feeling of being run over. In the taxi, a chilling realization hit her: Tommy DeVito had vanished, like a ghost. The film set was a disaster zone. Scarlett O'Hara, fresh off snagging a supporting role, sat fuming, her leg bleeding from a shard of glass. She couldn't blame anyone, really, but she needed to teach Mia Dolan a lesson. Why hadn't Mia noticed her injury? Scarlett wasn't about to let an opportunity slip away. "Do you want to take my place?" she snapped, a challenge disguised as a golden ticket. While Scarlett O'Hara stewed, Cersei Lannister, ever the pragmatist, suggested a swap. And so, the intrigue began. Hong Jie, seizing the moment, killed two birds with one stone, helping Scarlett, who was in too much pain to continue, and boosting Mia Dolan's career. Mia accepted, stepping into the dressing room to confront a figure-hugging Cheongsam, something she'd never worn, but who wouldn't want to try. The next scene saw a transformed Mia Dolan, breathtaking in her costume and makeup. She stepped onto the set, eyes filled with a story, as if an entire monsoon season waited to pour its melancholy onto the audience. Everyone around seemed to hold their breath, yet none suspected her gaze was fixed on one person, Gatsby Lucas. And just then, Gatsby Lucas, handsome as a painted portrait, appeared with a fiery gaze, as if he'd just stepped off the silver screen. He flashed a dazzling smile, approaching her, but instead of the expected captivation, Mia Dolan coolly replied, "Oh, I'm not a fan of yours." Gatsby Lucas was instantly floored by her blunt response, delivered without a hint of embarrassment. Gatsby Lucas, trying to maintain his composure, invited her to dinner, but Mia Dolan gently declined. "Can't, I have to visit my injured girlfriend. Bye." And with that, she left without hesitation, leaving a stunned Gatsby Lucas feeling like he'd just been slapped. From the moment he proudly declared, "Hey, I'm Gatsby Lucas himself," Mia Dolan could only sigh, "This again?" Indeed, even with Gatsby Lucas's boisterous announcement, she remained unfazed. Her response was an indifferent glance, devoid of any emotion. He couldn't believe his eyes. Who was this person who dared to be indifferent to him, a heartthrob adored by all? What irritated Gatsby Lucas even more was the unsettling feeling that he was captivated by her. Yes, after seeing the sadness in her eyes during the scene, Gatsby Lucas felt something stir within him. But he couldn't understand why she was so cold off camera. Could she not know who he was? Gatsby Lucas wondered. This is probably the moment you'll want to facepalm, because Gatsby Lucas was completely oblivious to the fact that this girl couldn't care less about him. Undeterred, Gatsby Lucas refused to give up, roaring, "Damn it," and dashing after her. While Gatsby Lucas fumed over being unknowingly shot down, Mia Dolan, the woman who had just brutally rejected him, sat quietly in a corner of the studio. Wrapped in an oversized coat, she sipped her drink and listened to Hong Tai praise her with quiet confidence. This was the beginning of a big dream. Mia Dolan hung on to Hong Tai's every word, completely unaware that her life was about to change, from just a girl in baggy clothes to the dream supporting actress. In the upcoming scene, she would have to slap Cersei Lannister hard. Well, even if it wasn't her nature, an actress had to play the role cool, right? Despite her reluctance, this was her chance. And thinking about it, she couldn't let this opportunity slip away. Before she could prepare herself, a silent black car pulled up outside the studio, and Tommy DeVito, a man with a regal presence, stepped out. You could feel the shift in the atmosphere the moment Tommy DeVito arrived. He was not only handsome but incredibly cool, an aristocratic aura radiating from every step. The entire studio fell silent, and his gaze immediately landed on Mia Dolan, who was dozing in a chair. Tommy DeVito observed her, drawn not only to her latent beauty but also to the pleasant fragrance emanating from her person. Yet, when Cersei Lannister, a vision in a silk Cheongsam, approached with an enamored gaze, he remained utterly indifferent. At this point, Mia Dolan remained blissfully unaware of the wolf circling her, watching from afar. Upon seeing Cersei Lannister in the Cheongsam, Tommy DeVito couldn't help but make comparisons, his mind involuntarily conjuring the image of Mia Dolan in a similar garment, a thought that sparked an immediate surge of anger. Cersei Lannister, perceptive of his cold stare, persisted in her attempts to capture his attention. But, like the man of power he was, Tommy DeVito disregarded her completely, abruptly demanding the director bring him the morning's film footage. Undeterred, Gatsby Lucas reappeared, assuming the role of the quintessential leading man, and promptly invited Mia Dolan to dinner. Alas, Mia Dolan remained unmoved, her icy rejection delivered without a shred of mercy. Left with a bruised ego, Gatsby Lucas scratched his head, bewildered, and could only mutter, "Why won't you give me face?" While Gatsby Lucas operated under the assumption that everyone knew him, Mia Dolan coldly retorted, "Why should I give you face? Do I even know you? Clearly, this girl was unaware of his heartthrob status, and he, in turn, couldn't fathom the reason for such a blunt rejection. The experience, seemingly novel to him, only fueled Gatsby Lucas's resolve to melt her icy heart, but his efforts were met with a chilling glare and the dismissive words, "In your dreams." Still smarting from the rejection, Gatsby Lucas happened upon Mia Dolan's film shoot, where an accidental trip by Cersei Lannister resulted in a series of failed takes. With each retake, the director's reprimands grew harsher, and Mia became the scapegoat for everything. It was certainly not a day anyone would wish for. In a gesture of kindness, Gatsby Lucas offered Mia Dolan his lunchbox, but she couldn't mask her sadness. She questioned her own competence, plagued by the criticism she'd endured. However, a chance encounter changed everything. Overhearing a conversation between the director and a mysterious man, Mia was stunned to realize it was Tommy DeVito, a name that resonated deeply within her. Reaching her breaking point, Mia Dolan stormed into the restroom, unleashing a torrent of angry words at Tommy DeVito over the phone. She refused to be controlled by him any longer. She no longer felt the same weakness she once had. Just then, a concerned Gatsby Lucas appeared, inquiring about her well-being. To his question, she snapped, "Sick of a certain man." Gatsby Lucas tensed, but only received a cold glare from Mia Dolan in response. Before she could catch her breath, Mia received an urgent call from the hospital, prompting her to rush off. The unexpected twist came when butler Alfred informed her of her grandfather's illness, brought on by company troubles, suddenly complicating everything. Mia Dolan assumed things would be all right with her grandfather maintaining the company as usual, but butler Alfred quickly revealed the dire situation. The company was in serious trouble, its stock plummeting, causing her grandfather such anxiety that his health deteriorated. Amidst her confusion, a chilling text from Tommy DeVito arrived, threatening her with the company's ruin if she didn't appear within 3 hours. A wave of helplessness washed over her, only to be followed by another shock: wear a white dress. Kai Diet Bar. A white dress, taboo for Mia Dolan after a past incident. Forced to comply, she changed into a stunning white gown, applied heavy makeup, and entered the Kai Diet Bar. This discreet yet powerful establishment pulsed with loud music and reeked of cigarette smoke. Unsurprisingly, Tommy DeVito's associates were present, their tension thickening with her arrival. Troy Barnes ushered her in, leading her to Tommy DeVito, who sat silently in a corner. The boss, radiating a chilling aura of power, exuded an indolent menace that dared no challenge. As Mia sat, Tommy abruptly pulled her onto his lap, a moment both sweet and fraught with tension. But Mia couldn't ignore the disturbing scene unfolding, a portly man harassing a woman kneeling at his feet. Tommy startled her with a sharp question, "Enjoy scolding me?" His voice, laced with lazy mystique, held her captive in his icy gaze. Undeterred, she retorted with a sly smile, "Don't you like it?" Maintaining his composure, Tommy pushed her away, stood, and decided to introduce her to the crowd. All eyes turned to him as he rose, his domineering presence commanding attention. "I want to introduce someone," he announced, silencing the room. Then, a voice from the crowd called out, "Boss, who? Your little sister? If so, I'll be first in line." Still a virgin, waiting to be popped. Dale Doback and Troy Barnes, seated nearby, chuckled as Tommy coolly pulled Mia onto his lap. Mia stumbled, nearly falling, but he held her, the twist of her ankle bringing tears to her eyes, though she dared not let them fall. Tommy brazenly declared her the woman who had rejected his proposal 3 years prior, drawing gasps of surprise from the crowd. Suddenly, all eyes were on Mia, an ordinary woman who had dared to refuse Tommy DeVito, a man at the pinnacle of their world. The tension escalated as Tommy casually remarked that she was just one of his women, disposable at whim. Mia, reeling, could scarcely believe her ears. As Mia struggled to regain her composure and turned to face him, he shoved her towards a panting, portly man in the corner. Disgust washed over her as the onlookers laughed and gossiped, their gazes unkind. Tommy watched impassively, as if it were all a play. In a moment of desperation, Mia grabbed a fruit knife, deciding to gamble. Holding the knife to the man's throat, she silenced the room. She threatened Tommy, vowing to take them all down with her if he didn't release her. But Tommy, unfazed, simply walked over, gently took the knife, and pulled her towards him like a puppet. The encounter ended abruptly, leaving Mia cold and helpless as she was pushed into a hotel room, where Tommy continued his forceful advances, ripping off her jacket. Mia Dolan couldn't help but feel flustered as Tommy DeVito, unabashed and stoic, sat there with 3 buttons undone, revealing his toned physique, and remorselessly brought up the previous, awkward, encounter that sent her scrambling to the bathroom to scrub everything away. Despite the overwhelming nausea, Mia Dolan couldn't ignore the man at the door. Head spinning, she clutched her towel, taking tiny steps out to face Tommy DeVito. It was a waiting game with an increasingly impatient predator, and he coldly remarked on her tardiness. She couldn't help but retort, despite feeling utterly drained. Tommy DeVito increasingly proved himself to be a cold, sharp man, and his approach made the situation all the more bizarre and strange. Mia Dolan, after a special, drunken episode, put on a somewhat naive and shady performance, clinging to him, feigning weakness and sticking close in hopes of saving her grandfather. But like a cunning fox, Tommy DeVito wasn't fooled. Instead, he coldly offered, "Stay with me for 6 months, and I'll help you." And so, Mia Dolan, in her drunken stupor, readily agreed. The aftermath of that night couldn't have been worse. She woke up aching all over, as if she'd been beaten, with marks covering her body, and a heart full of confusion. She wondered what had happened the night before, but couldn't deny that Tommy DeVito was a wolf in sheep's clothing with shady actions. The aching wouldn't leave her. Mia Dolan's face flushed as she glanced at Tommy DeVito, who appeared to be fast asleep. But don't be fooled, he wasn't one to be easily tricked. Just as she was about to sneak away, he spoke, his voice laced with sarcasm. "Where do you think you're going?" It turned out it was all an act. She hastily excused herself, saying she had to go to a film shoot, but his unexpected question stopped her in her tracks. "Not signing the contract anymore?" A simple question that made her halt immediately, and respond with a forced smile, "I'll just take a shower first." Tommy DeVito seemed pleased with her anxiety, and when she returned, he continued to tease her. As she descended, she was met with an exquisite white dress he had prepared for her, a stark contrast to the outfit she had hastily bought yesterday. This attentiveness made her feel trapped, yet she had to reluctantly accept it. After a few taunting remarks, she realized that in this world, some contracts aren't signed out of agreement, but out of a lack of alternatives. Finally, Mia Dolan gritted her teeth and signed the contract, resentment simmering within. "I sign." It didn't end there, because after signing, she still had to face Tommy DeVito's coldness, as he casually brought up the previous night as a subtle threat. What he wanted wasn't just one night, but her future. Regardless, she had to accept it, because her grandfather was still in the hospital, and Tommy DeVito was the one who could save everything. In the end, Tommy DeVito didn't bother to dwell on it, simply brushing it off, making a phone call, and taking a quiet sip of his drink, as if everything was under his control. A true wolf in sheep's clothing, always cold and calculating. As for Mia Dolan, she couldn't help but worry about her grandfather's condition. In the hospital room, the old man simply sat there, gently telling her not to worry about him anymore, but it was his calm demeanor that made Mia Dolan even more uneasy. It seemed he had long accepted his fate, and that was precisely what worried her the most. "Don't say that again, Grandpa. You know how scared I am. Don't frighten me like that again." For years, this was the first time Mia Dolan dared to speak like this, because her grandfather was known for his strictness and sternness. Yet today, he simply replied calmly with a peaceful look, "It's just an old ailment, nothing serious." When Grandpa Chin suddenly mentioned Tommy DeVito and offered blessings for the young couple, he unexpectedly dragged Mia Dolan into a tense conversation. He spoke of Tommy as if things could still be mended, but Mia Dolan held no such hope, cynically thinking he only wanted revenge. Before she could finish that thought, a door burst open, and Tommy DeVito, holding a bouquet of lilies, strode into the room. He was a man who always commanded attention, and this time, he looked at Mia Dolan with a contemptuous, calculating gaze. Just one look sent shivers down her spine. He approached, inquiring about Grandpa Chin's health with a gentleness that even brought a smile to the old man's face, as if nothing had ever happened. However, the conversation increasingly made Mia Dolan uncomfortable, especially when her grandfather brought up the events of 3 years prior. Tommy DeVito readily dismissed the old man's inquiries, stating that their connection was over. This surprised Mia Dolan, as he had always been so arrogant. How could he simply refuse? However, Mia Dolan had no intention of agreeing to any arrangements from her grandfather. She retorted sharply, mocking him about whether she was destined to be a spinster. The room fell silent, but Grandpa Chin laughed heartily, replying proudly, "My granddaughter is one of a kind." Tommy DeVito, not to be outdone, looked at her with a possessive gaze that made Mia Dolan uneasy. Leaving the hospital room, Mia Dolan instinctively wanted to distance herself from him, but Tommy DeVito followed closely, each step filled with purpose. Reaching the elevator, she felt the atmosphere grow heavy. And the moment the elevator doors closed, he suddenly tightened his arms around her waist, startling her. His warm breath grazed her ear as he whispered something that surprised her, "In a Cheng, absolutely no man would dare to marry you." Mia Dolan, stunned, couldn't react before he continued with an arrogant statement, "Because you are my woman." Rejecting her 3 years ago, now he returned to claim her so brazenly. Mia Dolan was annoyed, calling him conceited, but she also felt a sense of ridiculousness for being entangled with this narcissistic man. The meeting over, she hurried away, smoothing her clothes before getting into a taxi and heading straight to the film set. A chance encounter with Gatsby Lucas, her co-star, made things even more interesting. He always managed to irritate her, and this time was no exception, simply shrugging and replying curtly, "Nothing much." Gatsby Lucas teased her, telling her to hurry up and get her makeup done because he was eager to act with her. They both entered the makeup room where the leading lady, Cersei Lannister, was being prepped. Mia Dolan couldn't help but look at her with admiration, captivated by her unforgettable beauty. "Hey, who are you? Who told you to sit here?" A sharp, female voice rang out, causing Mia Dolan to turn. Facing her was Bella Lannister, a girl with a super cool appearance, short hair, and an attitude more sour than lemons. "Is this seat yours?" Mia Dolan replied, her face innocent as if to say, "I'm just clueless today, please don't make things difficult." Bella Lannister wasn't having it, sneering, Who do you think you are, sitting wherever you please?" Mia Dolan stood up, sighing discreetly, intending to avoid trouble, but unexpectedly her foot caught on something, wham! She fell forward, hitting her head on the dressing table, and naturally, a whole bunch of stuff clattered to the floor. It hurt, sure, but what hurt more was the enjoyable gaze of the surrounding crowd, no one bothering to help. Seeing this, Bella Lannister continued to add fuel to the fire, "So weak, you deserve to fall." The word stung like a slap, but Mia Dolan could only clutch her head, stand up, and slip out, leaving them to continue treating her as a joke. As soon as she got outside, she ran into Sister Hong, the only friend who still cared. "What's wrong? Why are you holding your head?" Mia Dolan managed a weak smile, "It's nothing, I just accidentally bumped my head." Actually, it did hurt, but how could that pain compare to having to continue filming, being a little soldier, amidst that crowd of powerful people? When asked about Bella Lannister, Sister Hong revealed that she was Cersei Lannister's cousin and had originally intended to snatch Mia Dolan's role. Ah, so that's it, things turned out to be not as simple as they seemed. But oh well, Mia Dolan just smirked, a plan already forming in her mind. "Just wait, I'll make them all bow down," she thought to herself. In the scene, she had to play the role of forcibly kissing Gatsby Lucas. Yes, you heard that right, amidst the coldness enveloping the film crew, in a cheongsam that couldn't help but attract attention. And Tommy DeVito stood there, his eyes sharp as knives, clearly not pleased with this scene. Yet when Mia Dolan rushed forward, kissing Gatsby Lucas as if the whole world didn't matter, he didn't say a word, just looked at her as if to say, this girl is about to face a catastrophe. And just when the film crew thought everything was wrapped up, Tommy DeVito replied with a single, cold word, yeah. Director Carson bowed deeply, not daring to look directly at Tommy DeVito, only sensing the tension in the air, as if an invisible shadow weighed heavily on every breath. This feeling was enough to make him draw a long breath, cautiously asking, CEO DeVito, this is. Tommy DeVito replied curtly, the script. Without further explanation, Director Carson hastily retreated, bowing before walking straight off, inwardly feeling lucky not to be hypnotized by the boss's cold gaze. Tommy DeVito, after putting out his cigarette, was left in silence, with a simple question, do you need to pick up Miss Cheen? No need, he replied coldly, as if not wanting to interfere further in anyone's life but his own. Meanwhile, at the Emerald Waters, the entertainment paradise and forbidden zone for paparazzi, things weren't unfolding as people imagined. Regina George, with seductive eyes and a hot figure, didn't hesitate to press close to Tommy DeVito. CEO DeVito, did you call me here just to sit and watch? Tommy DeVito looked at her coldly, his face expressionless. Regina George pouted, then, failed in her attempt to seduce him. A kiss was dodged by Tommy DeVito, leaving her sitting there, frowning, not understanding why things weren't going as expected. Unexpectedly, a phone call arrived, and after a brief exchange, Tommy DeVito's expression shifted, turning icy and somber. Regina George, witnessing this, immediately sulked, but he remained unmoved, simply rising and departing, leaving her stranded like a discarded object. In a basement bar of the Emerald Waters, Mia Dolan sat beside Gatsby Lucas, the space bustling with people, yet she felt only unease. Memories of Tommy DeVito and their previous encounter swirled in her mind, making the place feel unfamiliar. Gatsby Lucas, ever the self-proclaimed star of the crowd, attempted to engage her with jokes, but Mia Dolan responded with a chilling, lonely, I don't see it. Amidst the jovial atmosphere, a woman suddenly embraced Gatsby Lucas, leaving him flustered and awkward. Mia Dolan simply shook her head in disdain, turning her attention elsewhere. Just then, a cold voice cut through the air beside her, Miss Dolan, the boss requests your presence. Mia Dolan turned, surprised to find Mr. Thorne, Tommy DeVito's constant companion, standing there. The entire room seemed to freeze. Mr. Thorne's demeanor was casual, but his eyes held a clear warning. The boss isn't in a good mood, he said, his voice low. Mia Dolan realized she couldn't avoid this, and Gatsby Lucas, despite a flicker of alarm, could only watch helplessly. Mia Dolan bit her lip, knowing Gatsby Lucas's hot-headed nature. Though he appeared indifferent, he wouldn't let her off the hook later. She quickly explained her relationship with Gatsby Lucas and followed Mr. Thorne. As she entered the bar, her eyes flicked towards Tommy DeVito. He was cold as ice, yet exuded an aura that demanded caution. She tried to maintain her composure, asking, you didn't come to find me just to tease me, did you? Tommy DeVito sauntered closer, telling her she wasn't the same Mia Dolan as before, provoking her to retort, I was. Me 3 years ago, and I'm still the same now. He didn't stop there, mentioning her heart, which surprised Mia Dolan. Heart? It's frozen solid. Don't poke fun at me. At that moment, Gatsby Lucas, her co-star, was stopped by bodyguards and her name was called. Mia Dolan stood, eyes flashing, glaring at Tommy DeVito as if she wanted to throw knives. He remained unfazed, merely glancing at her, as if enjoying a girlfriend protecting her boyfriend movie. Tommy DeVito signaled for the bodyguards to take Gatsby Lucas away. Panicked, she ran over, shouting, where are you taking him? He pulled her back, calmly asking, why are you so worried about him? Mia Dolan tried to stay rational, replying, we're just co-stars, but inside, she felt like she was standing on the edge of a precipice. He raised an eyebrow, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Really? But he seems quite taken with you. Tommy DeVito felt a pang of jealousy, remembering her kissing Gatsby Lucas. Finally, he signaled for Mr. Thorne to take Gatsby Lucas away. Mia Dolan persisted, demanding, "What are you going to do with him?" Tommy DeVito taunted her, "Worried about him? Or do you want me to kill him and go to jail?" Mia Dolan retorted instantly, "It's all right, who manages DeVito Corporation anyway?" He chuckled softly, gently lifting her chin, looking directly into her eyes. "Little lady." Refusing to be subdued, she shot him a look. "I'm not your little lady. Go find someone else." Then he bent down, his warm lips brushing against her cheek, sending shivers down her spine. Tommy DeVito dropped a domineering line, "Because your entire being, from head to toe, belongs to me." Mia Dolan almost choked, but she quickly regained her composure, retorting firmly, "Are you trying to get revenge on me?" He chuckled dryly, then said, "I want your body." Mia Dolan felt like she'd been doused with ice water. Was he just toying with her? But, he also said he'd have her heart in 6 months. Insane. Despite this, she remained defiant, challenging him, "In 6 months, I'll be free. Don't even think about coming near me." But Tommy DeVito just chuckled softly, whispering in her ear, "Your heart won't allow it, not you." Mia Dolan sneered, scoffing, "What's the point of arguing with me?" But the situation immediately took a turn when she spotted lipstick on his shirt and smelled an unfamiliar perfume on him. Furious, she accused him of being with another woman and now teasing her. Tommy DeVito just smirked, asking if she was jealous. She brushed him off, claiming she didn't care and just wanted to go home. But he wouldn't let her off so easily. A cunning glint in his eyes, he pulled her towards the elevator and began acting as if to provoke her further. She reacted strongly, pushing him away, but he blocked her. At this point, his gentle yet cold gestures began to frighten her. She playfully retorted, feigning innocence, but he saw through her act. "Little girl, have you had enough of acting?" Their bickering continued, the tension between them escalating. Tommy DeVito wanted her to stay with him, but Mia Dolan refused, criticizing him for not showering after being with another woman. This remark triggered an emotional outburst in him, shattering his composure. Mia Dolan certainly knew how to push Tommy DeVito's buttons. She fought back relentlessly, kicking and punching him like a small warrior, but it only seemed to excite him more. When she screamed, "Bastard, if you dare do that to me," Tommy DeVito just sneered, as if challenging her, "Dare I?" He continued to torment her, making her sob. But he didn't stop, he gently wiped away her tears and kissed her as if trying to extinguish the fire within her. "Tommy DeVito, I hate you," she cried, but he only responded with a cruel look, "You don't have the right to hate me." And then, when everything seemed poised to end in pain, Tommy DeVito carried her out as if nothing had happened and poured her a glass of water, as if saying, "Thought you could handle that, huh?" Mia Dolan, understandably, was in no mood, looking at him as if she saw a monster within this handsome man. "Do you think I'm in any mood to eat or drink?" she retorted, her disgust evident. But Tommy DeVito, with a cold smile, didn't give up, even restarting his game with her. Then came a bizarre and truly unexpected moment. Tommy DeVito took off his white shirt, threw it in the trash in front of her, and told her to eat her fill. "Eat your fill," it sounded like a peculiar command. Mia Dolan just sneered, determined not to make it easy for him, and quickly looked for an escape, even though all the doors were locked. Thinking she could escape, she unexpectedly encountered a larger obstacle. The fingerprint-activated door refused to yield. Resigned, she went to the kitchen to cook noodles, feigning nonchalance while anxiety gnawed at her. When Tommy DeVito emerged, clad only in a towel, his look conveyed a condescending, "Good girl, stripping her of any will to resist." All would have been well if not for another surprise from Tommy DeVito. After kissing her passionately, he realized she had fallen asleep. While this scene might belong in a sweet romance film, it certainly didn't fit Mia Dolan's reality. Tommy DeVito panicked, called someone, and frantically tried to rouse her. Minutes later, a knock echoed. "Come in," he sighed in relief, seeing Kai Hai-nin enter. Kai Hai-nin, hair disheveled and coat askew, rushed in, asking, "Boss, what's the emergency?" Tommy DeVito, without pausing for explanations, pulled him into the bedroom and pointed at the unconscious Mia Dolan. "She won't wake up, no matter how much I try," he worried. Surprised by Tommy DeVito's unusual demeanor, Kai Hai-nin quickly checked Mia Dolan. "She's just sleeping." "Did she take sleeping pills?" he observed. Panicked, Tommy DeVito checked the medicine cabinet, discovering 4 missing pills. Kai Hai-nin, suspicious, said, "If she took sleeping pills, we need to get her to the hospital for gastric lavage." Tommy DeVito's composure remained shattered. Glaring at Mia Dolan, he accused her of deliberately provoking him. In a fit of rage, he gripped her chin and tore at her clothes. But as he was about to act, his anger subsided, replaced by a sardonic smirk. He felt like she was playing a game. Deciding against further action, he let her sleep, though suspicion lingered. The next morning, Mia Dolan awoke to the sight of him in just a towel and shrieked, "Why aren't you dressed?" Tommy DeVito smirked, replying, "You think I'm that desperate?" Mia Dolan, realizing she was still clothed, blushed with embarrassment. She chuckled awkwardly, "Even if you didn't do anything, you intended to, so I'm not wrong." As Mia Dolan tried to leave the bed, Tommy DeVito pulled her back, coldly asking, "Aren't you going to explain yourself?" Mia Dolan could only offer a wry smile, blaming her exhaustion from filming. Secretly, she reveled in her deception. Tommy DeVito, despite his anger, couldn't hide the vulnerability in his voice as he said, "Maybe I shouldn't have gotten involved with you." Mia Dolan thought, "It's just a failed proposal, why make such a fuss? Weak men are so hard to please." Mia Dolan felt utterly helpless facing Tommy DeVito. She hadn't anticipated this situation, nor his discovery of the missing sleeping pills. When he threatened to force an explanation, she could only manage a strained smile, attempting to appease him. Though she intended to claim she took the pills for exhaustion, Tommy DeVito remained unconvinced. He mocked her, pushing her further into a corner. When Mia Dolan inadvertently mentioned their relationship being purely transactional, Tommy DeVito coldly confirmed it, leaving her unable to deny the truth. He showed no surprise or remorse, instead reinforcing her feeling of being a pawn in his game. Tommy DeVito then surprised her with a contract offer from his company, WTD Entertainment, as if no other option existed. She couldn't fathom his audacity, but he remained indifferent to her feelings. His every word dripped with dominance, leaving Mia Dolan no choice. When he bluntly stated he'd take care of her if she signed, Mia Dolan felt a mix of shame and indignation. Despite her inner turmoil, she maintained composure, claiming a busy filming schedule. Tommy DeVito dismissed her excuse, informing her his people would collect her at noon for the signing. Her attempts to refuse were met with his cold assertion that she had no choice. His quiet words landed like a blow, trapping Mia Dolan in a corner with no escape. Tommy DeVito controlled not just their relationship, but her life, imprisoning her in a world where he held all the power. Mia Dolan bit her lip, turning away from his sharp gaze. His eyes, like a wolf's, fixed on her, reducing her to prey in his game. This time was no different. "Right, I really have to go," Mia Dolan said hurriedly, but Tommy DeVito wasn't about to let her leave so easily. "I don't like your flippancy," he said coldly, stopping her in her tracks and forcing her to turn back. And then, that moment. Annoyed but forced to feign politeness, she replied, "Tommy, Gidge, I'll definitely be there. Whether I'm chosen or not, I'll be there. Can I go now?" He looked at her, his face stern, but his eyes softened, almost indulgent, leaving her bewildered. "Go," he commanded casually, and she left, fuming but powerless. Tommy DeVito questioned his own sanity. He still couldn't understand why Mia Dolan stirred such conflicting emotions within him. Despite his rage the previous night, he'd treated her normally this morning. Not good, really not good, he chided himself. His goal was to torment her, not be with her. This feeling was unsettling, especially considering the last 3 years of his life. How could she stand before him so calmly, as if nothing had happened? Mia Dolan, escaping the tense encounter, rushed to the film set. As a supporting actress, she had no private car. No one acknowledged her arrival, but she maintained her composure. In the restroom, splashing cold water on her face, she overheard 2 women gossiping about her sudden rise from insignificant assistant to a supporting actress with increased screen time. She has someone backing her, one whispered, making Mia Dolan wonder, was Tommy DeVito behind it all? Mia Dolan checked the script and discovered her scenes for the day had changed, all the kissing scenes were gone. Someone had definitely intervened. A strange feeling settled over her, but recalling her agreement with Tommy DeVito, she felt a sense of relief. If he was boosting her career, there was no shame in it, right? With this unexpected turn of events, Mia Dolan began to feel favored. Director Carson invited her to dinner, but before she could respond, a chilling voice cut through the air, Cersei Lannister's. Since when did I become your older sister? Cersei Lannister's disdain was palpable, yet Director Carson vehemently defended Mia Dolan, leaving her annoyed but forced to swallow her anger. However, Mia Dolan had nothing to fear, for she had already stepped into this vicious circle and understood the price she had to pay. As soon as he sat down, Gatsby Lucas questioned her about the previous day's events. She curtly replied, "It's fine, everything's all right." But when he persisted, snatching her script and demanding, "Don't you have anything to explain to me?" Mia Dolan wanted to scream, "Who are you, acting like Tommy DeVito? Demanding explanations from me?" Mia Dolan nearly choked Gatsby Lucas with her brazen response. She shot him a look and retorted sharply, "Explain what? Can't you see I'm perfectly fine? If everything's okay, what's there to explain?" Unfazed, she snatched her script back and continued reading, completely ignoring him. Undeterred, Gatsby Lucas subtly probed about the man from the night before, prompting him to wonder aloud, "Was that gentleman your father-in-law, your brother, or your lover?" Mia Dolan's reply stunned him, "What do you think? A beautiful woman in this scandalous place, who can be completely pure?" Her words, both powerful and piercing, struck Gatsby Lucas like a blow to the gut. She reaffirmed their incompatibility, leaving him to grapple with his frustration. The drama escalated with the arrival of Cersei Lannister, a colleague who held little affection for Mia Dolan. Dressed in a cheongsam, Cersei Lannister appeared demure, but her eyes glinted with malice. She couldn't resist taunting Mia Dolan, feigning concern, "Oh my, such a large nail in your shoe, did you not notice it?" Whispers rippled through the onlookers, but Gatsby Lucas immediately jumped to Mia Dolan's defense, even discovering that Cersei Lannister herself was the culprit. The tension thickened as Gatsby Lucas flung Cersei Lannister's shoe aside, revealing the nails embedded in the sole. Needless to say, this revelation shocked everyone, exposing Cersei Lannister's scheme. Unable to bear the humiliation, Cersei Lannister spat out a sarcastic remark, "Mia Dolan, it's all your fault that filming was interrupted, are you satisfied now?" In the ensuing events, Mia Dolan continued to face the nightmare of Cersei Lannister, who relentlessly needled her about her relationship with Gatsby Lucas. When Cersei Lannister deliberately provoked her, demanding an explanation, Mia Dolan remained calm and responded coldly, "If you're intentionally causing trouble, there's nothing I can do." She skillfully cut Gatsby Lucas off, preventing him from getting entangled in the rumors, knowing that further explanations would only complicate matters. Director Carson swiftly intervened, halting filming to allow Mia Dolan to rest and address the situation. Later, despite Gatsby Lucas's concern, she declined his help. She wanted to handle things alone, avoiding any further misunderstandings. Although her injury wasn't severe, Mia Dolan felt wronged and had to remove the nail from her foot herself in the restroom. The pain brought tears to her eyes, but the realization that someone had deliberately planted the nail was even more agonizing. As she fumbled with the wound, a Gatsby-Lucas assistant arrived with antiseptic and bandages. While the wound was being treated, Mia Dolan couldn't help but wonder who was behind it. Could it be Cersei Lannister? Dismissing her anxieties, she decided to return to the film set. After wrapping up, she stepped outside to find Gatsby-Lucas waiting by his car. He greeted her with a smile, calling her his lovely Cinderella. Mia Dolan declined his offer of a ride, stating, "My knight is waiting," referring to Tommy DeVito. Gatsby-Lucas, taken aback and slightly embarrassed, still expressed his concern. She simply offered a small smile and continued on her way. Stepping outside, Mia Dolan saw Tommy DeVito's luxury car parked nearby. He stood there, exuding a dashing aura with every gesture. Mia Dolan tried to ignore him, but couldn't help but notice his gaze. After she walked past, Tommy DeVito's brow furrowed slightly, but then he seemed to dismiss it. Once Mia Dolan was in the car, Tommy DeVito didn't say much, immediately hitting the gas and driving off. As soon as she finished fastening her seatbelt, he asked, "So? Do you think I embarrassed you?" Initially startled, Mia Dolan quickly understood his meaning and hastily shook her head. But when Tommy DeVito lifted her chin to question her further, she firmly replied, "No, I'm just afraid of being seen." Tommy DeVito continued to tease her about her fear of their relationship being public, but Mia Dolan wasn't easily pressured. She retorted, "Hardships are born to be endured. I'm not afraid." Finally, Tommy DeVito shrugged, then turned and asked, "Have you had lunch yet?" When she replied, "Boxed lunch," he invited her to dine with him, seemingly wanting to compensate for her fatigue. Mia Dolan stared blankly at the man driving, filled with doubt. She couldn't help but wonder, 2 hours had passed and Tommy DeVito still hadn't eaten lunch. Had he been waiting for her that long? She couldn't believe someone as arrogant as him would wait for her, but then she told herself she was probably overthinking. When she asked him about lunch, he just hummed softly, his expression nonchalant as if nothing had happened. The feeling of anxiety seemed to dissipate, and Mia Dolan breathed a sigh of relief. She reassured herself that if Tommy DeVito had actually waited for her, he would have already scolded her. So, perhaps she was overthinking it. In the Italian restaurant, they sat facing each other. Tommy DeVito ordered 2 plates of pasta, while he poured Mia Dolan a glass of red wine. She shook her head, declining the drink, saying she wasn't meant for alcohol. He chuckled softly, pouring himself a glass and joking that he enjoyed her drunken demeanor, causing Mia Dolan to blush in embarrassment. She quickly denied it, but Tommy DeVito continued to tease her, leaving her speechless. As he continued to question her about quitting alcohol, Mia Dolan felt her face grow even hotter. The memory of her drunken state the previous night still mortified her. Tommy DeVito added another question, trapping her in the awkwardness. She quickly pretended not to notice, burying her head in her pasta to avoid his sharp gaze. The conversation abruptly shifted to her work on the film set. Tommy DeVito asked directly if he had revised the script. Mia Dolan frowned, uncomfortable with the rumors surrounding her having connections. Tommy DeVito seemed unconcerned, continuing to tease her, further irritating Mia Dolan. She didn't want to be seen as someone who relied on a rich benefactor, but he paid no mind, simply stating it was perfectly normal. As their conversation continued, Tommy DeVito abruptly asked, "What happened to your leg?" After a long silence, Tommy DeVito happened to glance at the bandage on her leg and indifferently inquired, "My leg's fine, just a tack. Nothing serious." Mia Dolan offered a naive smile, but the air remained frigid. She pressed her lips together, glancing out the window. Tommy DeVito didn't bother getting out of the car, coldly instructing her, "Get out." Mia Dolan was surprised. "Aren't you coming in with me?" He simply raised an eyebrow. "Do you really want the whole world to know we're together?" Mia Dolan quickly shook her head, scrambling out of the car without daring to look back. A strange feeling washed over her, as if she were the star of a turbulent romance film. Arriving at WTD Entertainment, she encountered Troy Barnes, a man in a smart suit who still couldn't escape the gazes of the women in the company. Troy Barnes, feeling awkward, stood waiting like a living billboard for WTD, unhappy about the long wait. He even sneezed a few times due to the strong perfume of a girl delivering coffee. Mia Dolan arrived, offering a bright greeting, but Troy Barnes only frowned at her as if she were a nuisance. "You finally arrived." Glancing around, she felt like a target bombarded by laser beams. "Right, let's go in. Why do I feel like everyone's staring daggers at me?" She walked as if being pursued. Troy Barnes paid no attention, walking ahead of her as if nothing had happened. Mia Dolan couldn't help but wonder if he had a collection of enemies. She decided to continue on her own, ignoring the stares. In the meeting room, Troy Barnes and Dale Doback sat far apart, creating a tense atmosphere. Neither even looked at her when she entered, but when she objected to the 5-year contract, Troy Barnes couldn't contain his sarcasm. "You're hesitating. Plenty of people would kill for this opportunity." Annoyed by Troy Barnes's taunts, Mia Dolan decided against signing the contract and stormed off, leaving Troy Barnes to sigh as if it were a never-ending battle. Later, while strolling through the city, she was caught in a light rain. Taking shelter in a shopping mall, she spotted Tommy DeVito next to Regina George, a beautiful woman browsing jewelry. Mia Dolan was momentarily stunned, then thought, "Oh, he's busy chasing skirts, not worrying about anything else." This brought her a sense of relief. But, a tinge of regret that she was no longer his priority. Then, she bumped into someone, hearing only, "Hey, what's wrong with you?" Flustered, Mia Dolan realized she'd created another unwanted situation. A chill ran down her spine as she stumbled back a step. Mia Dolan, strolling down the street, was nearly driven to curse by Tommy DeVito's teasing voice from behind. She thought, how pathetic. It's just a chance encounter, and now he probably thinks I'm stalking him. Turning around, she forced a smile. "Ah, Mr. DeVito, we meet again." Tommy DeVito didn't bother replying, coldly dismissing her as heartless, as if she were insignificant. Mia Dolan, realizing her precarious position, quickly excused herself. But the drama didn't end there. Regina George, Tommy DeVito's belle of the ball, suddenly appeared, hostile as a hitman. After looking Mia Dolan up and down, she draped herself over Tommy DeVito, staking her claim right then and there. Mia Dolan quickly denied any relationship. "We're not friends, Miss George, don't misunderstand." But Tommy DeVito twisted the knife, saying she was nothing more than his employee. So Mia Dolan, seeing no other option, made a quick exit. Turning back, she asked him irritably, "Tommy DeVito, what the hell was that? Your beauty got chased off, why didn't you go after her?" Tommy DeVito didn't bother answering, just coldly turned back and demanded she sign the contract, saying she hadn't finished the job he'd given her. Mia Dolan couldn't hold back any longer and admitted she didn't want to sign with WTD Entertainment anymore. Tommy DeVito, without a flicker of emotion, simply asked, "Reason?" And so she had to reveal how his dear old friend had pissed her off. Tommy DeVito glanced at her, then sighed as if heartbroken over some ancient memory she'd forgotten. His question, "How could you forget what happened back then?" made Mia Dolan squirm, because it was connected to her incredibly lame reason for breaking off her engagement. And then, with a dramatic flourish, Tommy DeVito pulled her close, leaning her against him, and placed her hand over his heart where his Grim Reaper tattoo resided. Mia Dolan reacted instantly, snatching her hand back and scowling, "Are you crazy? We can't be holding hands in broad daylight." He just smirked coldly and continued to pull her along in the rain, then suddenly embraced her, kissing her right there in the street. She started to resist but gradually got swept away by the kiss, even forgetting to breathe. Cold rain fell on her face, but it couldn't quench the fire of his kiss. After the kiss ended, he didn't forget to add a mocking remark, "Little girl, everything you owe me, I'll collect from you, bit by bit." And with that, he strode forward, leaving Mia Dolan standing there, dazed and bewildered. In the end, Mia Dolan had no choice but to sign the contract with WTD Entertainment because Tommy DeVito had used Sheen Corp as leverage. While signing, Troy Barnes, WTD Entertainment's representative, announced tonight's ball, and Mia Dolan resigned herself, having no excuse to refuse. She still couldn't resist a sarcastic, self-reassuring thought, "Come hell or high water, what do I have to fear?" But when she went outside, she discovered her foot throbbing from the wound getting wet, wondering if it was festering. Sighing, Mia Dolan gritted her teeth and left, feeling utterly apathetic towards anything related to Tommy DeVito. She couldn't even bear to look at one of his buildings. Back in her cramped rented room, she tossed her high heels aside like a grenade and checked her foot. The wound was swollen, making every step painful. She applied some ointment and lay down on the bed, her mind still circling the question, "What the hell is going on?" without finding an answer. That evening, Mia Dolan appeared at the party, dressed in a pristine white gown and high heels. She knew these kinds of parties were all about attracting attention, the more encounters, the more opportunities. So she decided not to miss out. With light makeup, her hair pulled up, a delicate platinum necklace around her neck, and the white dress hugging her curves, she became the center of attention. She was beautiful in a simple yet elegant way, enough to make everyone around her look twice. But no one knew the pain her high heels inflicted, nor the turmoil within her. Suddenly, her eyes locked onto a familiar figure in the crowd. Him. Tommy DeVito. Her heart constricted, a visceral blow. 3 years she thought she'd forgotten, but now, seeing him again, the old wounds reopened. He looked the same, handsome and radiant, unchanged, but were her feelings the same? She inhaled deeply, feigning indifference, and sought refuge in a secluded corner. Unfortunately, Gatsby Lucas appeared, beaming as if he'd found a long-lost love. Yeah. What are you doing here?" She turned, forcing a smile. "Isn't this WTD's gala? I signed a contract." Gatsby Lucas seemed surprised. "Really? That's great." Mia Dolan simply scoffed, "Great? The thought of a 5-year contract gives me a headache." Gatsby Lucas, momentarily speechless, stared at her, captivated, unsure what to say. She abruptly asked, "Get me some juice, will you?" Gatsby Lucas frowned slightly. "Juice? This is a cocktail party." But he went to find her juice, adding before he left, "The vows aren't finished yet, your beauty is dazzling." She glanced at him and retorted, "Dazzling or dazzlingly fake, just go." As Gatsby Lucas disappeared, her mood plummeted. She sat watching him go, a pang in her chest. Suddenly, all eyes turned to a corner where Tommy DeVito stood beside Regina George, his face arrogant, his dark cloak radiating coldness. The sight hit Mia Dolan like a bucket of ice water, her heart clenching. A man approached her, Director Wong, a stranger. He praised her charisma, even offering her a film role. Before she could respond, Tommy DeVito appeared, chuckled, and sat beside her. "Well? Surprised?" His voice, a challenge. Her astonishment was evident. "Why is he back?" Tommy DeVito smirked, his eyes cold, piercing. She snapped, expecting something. "Are you crazy?" He continued, unfazed, "Little beauty, does it hurt here?" He pressed a finger against her chest, a sharp pain radiating through her. "Hurt? Tommy DeVito, stop it, you're hurting me." Mia Dolan cried out as Tommy DeVito gifted her with a passionate kiss in public. What she thought was true love turned out to be a tragic drama. Her glistening eyes held reproach, but the lovesick man wouldn't let go, kissing her again, oblivious to the curious stares. What followed was a chase scene straight out of an action movie. Tommy DeVito, like a villainous superhero, dragged Mia Dolan through the crowd, leaving her breathless. His words echoed, "You have no choice." Oh, what a power struggle of love, irresistible. He then played a mind game, saying, "Yaya always mentions you to me," leaving Frank Lucas, standing nearby, in disbelief, who could easily forget such a girl. But don't expect smooth sailing in this love affair, because when Frank Lucas seriously asked, "Yaya, is that true?" Mia Dolan immediately countered with an excuse to leave, "I suddenly remembered something, please excuse me." And so, the drama continued. Outside, a distraught Mia Dolan stumbled into the street, overwhelmed with emotion, forcing Tommy DeVito to treat her by sweeping her up like a princess. His question, "Heartbroken he didn't notice ya, doll," made her want to run and hide. Yet, she couldn't deny his kiss, both tender and strangely painful. Then, in a surprising twist, Gatsby Lucas appeared, asking, "Hey, what are you doing here? Did you see a girl in a long dress?" Gatsby Lucas scratched his head, a little frustrated. "She asked me to get her some juice, and when I came back, she was gone." Frank Lucas raised an eyebrow, a knowing, "I know her, don't I?" look on his face, grinning as if only sunglasses were missing to complete his mysterious, cool guy, persona. But Gatsby Lucas sighed, his face a picture of lovesick disappointment, like, "I met a fairy, but I couldn't keep her." Frank Lucas, equally cold, added, "My birthday's coming up, invite her," the kind of, invite her, for what, he didn't say, that made everyone think hard. Arriving at Paradise Bay, a place only the elite could access, Tommy DeVito carried Mia Dolan as if rescuing her from villains. Clearly, it was to keep her, obediently, by his side, the kind of, summoned and can't refuse, situation. But still, even though she knew she couldn't escape, she tried to ignore him with a, "I'm leaving when this is over," look. Tommy DeVito, despite his powerful status, suffered from extreme OCD, the kind where Mia Dolan's slightest injury was despised, his cold indifference on full display. Mia Dolan, constantly dissatisfied and unwilling to sleep beside Tommy DeVito, probably because he was a bit weird, could do nothing but swallow her anger. Things got even more complicated when Tommy DeVito casually announced he'd liquidated all of Mia Dolan's belongings, from her house to her clothes, leaving only her official room at his villa. Mia Dolan was furious at this absurdity but could do nothing, gritting her teeth, sighing, living under someone else's roof, you can't help but bow your head. A girl enduring this was truly suffering, hurting. A passage filled with loathing, yet unable to leave, only able to laugh at herself for not finding a chance to vent her anger. Tommy DeVito chuckled at Mia Dolan's defiant eyes, an inexplicable feeling rising within him, certainly not love, curiosity, perhaps, and a touch of amusement. All was quiet until Mr. Thorne reported the stiletto assassination attempt. Yes, the assistant didn't know how to prank a model. Tommy DeVito was nonchalant, do nothing, why help a stranger? Only Mia Dolan didn't know he could do anything, like enter the bathroom, remove his jacket, and begin uniting with a wicked smile. Like it? He asked, but she could only awkwardly reply that she was sleepy. However, Tommy DeVito diligently threatened her with a bizarre shared bath. Yes, her modeling career would be ruined without cooperation. Mia Dolan could only stammer and sigh in bewilderment. But surprisingly, after a bout of torment, she woke to find Tommy DeVito had another cold side, while on a phone call, no longer the intimidating figure from before. Despite his wealth and power, Tommy DeVito was clearly still a businessman, and who knew what drew him to WTD Entertainment besides love, or was it just a transaction? Biting her lip, her gaze cold, Mia Dolan easily recognized that the previous incident was merely a warning from Tommy DeVito to WTD Entertainment. As for his so-called help, how long would it last? She couldn't help but wonder as he entered, his eyes full of gentle teasing, making her wary yet unable to stop herself from blushing. Afterwards, Tommy DeVito continued to tease her, calling her a wildcat, and adding, "I prefer wildcats." Mia Dolan didn't let it slide, retorting immediately, kittens can scratch too. But then she had to go to the dressing room to find her stage outfit, and was surprised to discover Tommy DeVito's clothing collection was like a miniature shopping mall, filled with high-end designer clothes, tags still attached. Indeed, the clothes fit her perfectly, as if he had prepared them for her. But she simply chose a modest, light blue dress, then hurried back to work, not letting this distract her. At dinner, she had no appetite for the extravagant dishes, only wanting to quickly leave this suffocating mansion. The scene of her not eating but still being forced to drink a glass of milk on her master's orders made her feel like a character in some melodramatic film. After finishing the milk, she quickly stood up, relieved to finally escape the place. When she arrived at the film set, although she had escaped the nightmare of her master's instructions, she encountered a new event, her assistant, Lily, a sweet and adorable girl. However, her peace didn't last long, as Cersei Lannister made a snide remark, forcing Mia to maintain her composure and not let this petty person affect her. Then, it didn't stop there, she discovered a trap in her costume, 2 hidden sewing needles that could have caused her harm if she hadn't been careful. However, Mia Dolan quickly realized this and decided to pretend she knew nothing, continuing to work without revealing anything. Finally, when Gatsby Lucas appeared and apologized for leaving the party early, Mia Dolan simply smiled in response, feeling nothing for him but not wanting to hurt him either. "It's okay, I didn't look for you because of last night." Gatsby Lucas, who always boasted about his generosity, now had a face as red as a ripe persimmon. Who would have thought such a charismatic guy could be so shy? Mia Dolan was still bewildered as she received the bouquet of lilies from Gatsby Lucas, wondering whether to refuse or accept, because no one gives flowers without some hidden meaning, right? But no, Gatsby Lucas quickly explained that the flowers symbolized pure love, nothing to do with a complicated confession, so she comfortably accepted them, though she still had some doubts. And then, before the situation could stop being misguided, Gatsby Lucas continued with an invitation. "My brother's birthday is in a few days, I'd like to invite you." Was he moving too fast? Meeting the parents already? Was he sure? There was another small debate, but in the end, it was just an invitation to a simple birthday party. The biggest thing Gatsby Lucas didn't say was, she hadn't accepted him yet. Although she acted cute, she wasn't without a touch of coldness. After the shoot, Mia Dolan felt like she'd been through a war, but a bigger battle raged within, her unresolved relationship with Tommy DeVito. So, she sought a little relaxation, which led her to accidentally overhear a shady conversation between Cersei Lannister and Director Carson. Carson was clearly untrustworthy, and Lannister was shockingly generous in bribing him to reduce Mia's screen time. The plot thickened when she couldn't shake Mr. Thorne, her persistent shadow, and then bumped into Frank Lucas at the hospital. Coincidence morphed into awkward. After some bizarre small talk, Mia finally offered a gentle excuse, "My grandfather's ill, so I'll go ahead." Mia Dolan gave a tight-lipped smile and a nod that screamed, "Hey there, ex-boyfriend," as she stepped into the elevator. Everything seemed normal, but inside, she felt a vast ocean of awkwardness, the kind you feel when you meet someone you're not sure how to greet anymore. He was a familiar stranger. But Frank Lucas wasn't about to let things stay peaceful. He followed her into the elevator, glancing at Mr. Thorne with a "I'm also here to visit Old Man Cheen" vibe, maintaining a friendly facade. But was he really there for a hospital visit? Or was he there to see his victim, Mia Dolan, and rekindle their old flame? Upon reaching the room, they discovered Old Man Cheen had been discharged. Yep, how embarrassing. Mia, caught up in her busy schedule for the past 2 weeks, had completely forgotten. Naturally, Frank Lucas poured salt on the wound, calling her Yaya, as if she were a shattered heart waiting for him to piece it back together. Things were getting shady, like a bad, Dangerous X movie. Frank Lucas dropped the classic line, "Don't reject me, I'll feel like a failure." He couldn't forget the woman who was once a gentle breeze in his life. Mia wondered, how did I get dragged back into this? The ex-boyfriend saga continued on a cold beach, where Frank Lucas casually took her hand as if 3 years hadn't passed. This wasn't the blue ocean, white sand fantasy Mia had in mind. Her heart wasn't swaying with the sea breeze, it was spinning in this conversation. Then, Frank Lucas added to her discomfort, "Yeah, do you still blame me?" As if trying to reclaim lost time. The cringe-worthy moment arrived when Frank Lucas went for a kiss, barely grazing her cheek. Tears fell, not from longing, but because Tommy DeVito, her current boyfriend, kept flashing through her mind. When Frank Lucas dared to say, "You don't love him," Mia could only weakly reply, "No one's forcing me, no one's forcing me." But honestly, who could resist this kind of old flame charm? Frank Lucas's final line ramped up the drama, "Was that you're just the end?" Mia froze, feeling like she'd been electrocuted. What did he mean? It was like a dark cloud settling over everything. Outside, the wind howled like a warning, "Mia Dolan, beware, danger lurks." But she didn't notice until Frank Lucas appeared, his cold, haunting gaze giving her a shiver of inexplicable fear. It wasn't his height or his looks, but his emotionless expression. This was a man who made you wonder how you'd be played. Mia Dolan's anxiety spiked. Would the past be dredged up? He stared, his perfect chin cupped in his hand, his gaze emotionless yet tender. She felt like a fish on his line. Frank Lucas said softly, Yeah, don't worry, I won't let that happen." He seemed to be mocking her. But she had no idea how he was toying with her, only biting her lip in confusion. Inevitable. A gentle, calculated kiss from Frank Lucas landed, carrying the faint but profoundly deep scent of tobacco. Mia Dolan couldn't shake the strange feeling, wanting to stop but unable. Just as she was lost in the kiss, a phone rang, shattering the romantic air like a slap to the face. It was Tommy DeVito, the man who could melt your heart or make you want to crawl into a hole. Frank Lucas looked at her, a sinister smile playing on his lips. "Is that him?" She snapped back to reality, her body stiffening. "It's nothing, I want to go home." Mia Dolan looked down like a guilty child, terrified of facing the man waiting for her. But Frank Lucas wasn't about to let her escape. "Thirsty? Drink this and I'll take you home," he said, and Mia Dolan drank the offered water, unaware of its contents. Immediately, a dreamy, hypnotic sensation washed over her. Frank Lucas lowered his voice, telling her to just sleep a little. He was clearly trying to turn her into a puppet. Nobody gets drowsy from plain water, right? Meanwhile, Tommy DeVito, somewhere in City A, was furious enough to burn the whole place down looking for her. He issued cold commands, and when Tommy DeVito's angry, nobody's safe. As he spoke, the veins in his hand bulged. The mere thought of his girl meeting her ex-lover was enough to make him call out his crew for a cleanup. When Mia Dolan finally woke up, her face flushed from a harsh lesson in love and truth, she realized with a jolt that she'd consumed something unidentified, and was now in Frank Lucas's car, the handsome but equally dangerous man. Of course, he was quite proud of investigating her, knowing everything about her, including the messy situation with Tommy DeVito. He'd done his homework. Finally, Mia Dolan decided to get out of the car, to face her greatest fear, Tommy DeVito, a man capable of every terrifying thing imaginable. And the most terrifying part, she knew he would. The door opened, and Mia Dolan entered, her face etched with worry, causing old Mistress Wong to frown in concern. She lowered her head, trying to hide her anxiety, but the unease in her eyes betrayed her. Old Mistress Wong informed her of Tommy DeVito's foul mood, increasing Mia Dolan's tension as she ascended the stairs. Opening the room's door, she was immediately hit by the heavy air thick with cigarette smoke in the dimly lit space, where Tommy DeVito sat motionless like a statue. Beside him, an overflowing ashtray testified to his heavy smoking throughout the night. Mia Dolan approached cautiously, drawing back the curtains to let the light in, not forgetting to chide him for his excessive smoking. Before she could react, Tommy DeVito grabbed her, his grip tight around her waist. The air thickened with tension as he questioned her about the previous night, his suspicions weighing heavily. Mia Dolan, despite her attempts at concealment, couldn't hide her lies from Tommy DeVito. He coldly pressed for the truth, his control inescapable. She tried to change the subject, but each of Tommy DeVito's questions felt like a knife twisting in her gut. Every question, every rough gesture, intensified the oppressive weight of his presence. Finally, her composure shattered, and she vehemently denied meeting anyone else when Tommy DeVito brought it up. Though she insisted she hadn't had a rendezvous, that everything was coincidental, Tommy DeVito's gaze pierced through her facade, trapping her in a vortex of control and suspicion. Tommy DeVito scoffed, unconvinced by the supposed coincidence of his phone system being hacked, leading Mr. Thorne to believe he was in danger and rushed to his aid. He'd quickly realized something was amiss and called Mr. Thorne, but by the time he returned, Frank Lucas had whisked Mia Dolan away, a car waiting at the hospital entrance. It was all too convenient, too orchestrated, for Tommy DeVito to dismiss as anything but a plot. Tommy DeVito interrogated Mia Dolan about her past, unearthing secrets she tried to bury. He not only brought up her abrupt departure 3 years prior but also questioned her connection to Frank Lucas, accusing her of being an opportunistic orphan exploiting others. Despite Mia Dolan's attempts to explain, Tommy DeVito remained cold and distrustful. Meanwhile, Mia Dolan, burdened by guilt and regret over past mistakes, faced a harsh reality. She felt powerless against Tommy DeVito's accusations, yet she persisted in trying to prove herself. However, she couldn't escape the deep-seated fear of abandonment that had haunted her since childhood. On set, Mia Dolan continued to grapple with the pressures of work and strained relationships with her colleagues. Bella Lannister's taunts offered no respite. During a scene, an argument escalated, and Mia Dolan accidentally shoved Bella Lannister, but the events unfolded differently than scripted. Mia Dolan tripped, hitting her head on a rock and losing consciousness, while Bella Lannister seized the opportunity to shift the blame. Mia Dolan couldn't get up, the pain both physical and emotional. Mia Dolan, still reeling from the collision with Bella Lannister, received a call from Frank Lucas, who had somehow obtained her number while she was asleep and now appeared, conveniently, to invite her to dinner. They went to an Italian restaurant, and the moment they sat down, the atmosphere became unbearably tense. Troy Barnes appeared, yanked Mia Dolan to her feet, and yelled, "You've got some nerve, dining with him." Him was Tommy DeVito, whose arrival moments later was even more shocking. Dressed in a sharp suit, sporting large sunglasses, and wearing a nonchalant smirk, Tommy DeVito immediately declared war on Troy Barnes, got nothing better to do. He ordered Mia Dolan to come to him, and when she hesitated, he roughly pulled her close, asserting his dominance with a forceful kiss in front of Frank Lucas. Not out of love, but to make a point, she's mine. Frank Lucas watched the tense situation unfold, powerless to intervene, only able to grip Mia Dolan's hand under the table, his worry palpable. Tommy DeVito, after the kiss, gently dabbed her lips with a handkerchief as if handling a precious artifact. Dragged into the elevator by Tommy DeVito, Mia Dolan felt a surge of near madness. She glared at him, but Tommy DeVito seemed oblivious to her fury, sneering, "She's mine. You can only have her when I'm done with her, understand?" A blatant power play. Tommy DeVito's taunt fueled Mia Dolan's anger. Troy Barnes, an outside observer, chimed in with a sarcastic, "Got a hearing problem?" The argument, nonsensical to anyone else, ended with Tommy DeVito pulling Mia Dolan into the elevator, preventing her escape. Inside the elevator, the situation escalated. Like an enraged wolf, Tommy DeVito pressed Mia Dolan against the wall. Unable to contain her fury, she yelled, "You're insane. There's nothing between me and him." His response was a twisted assertion of dominance, "You want to sleep with him? I'll take Lucas' family from him. See who you'll run to then." Defeated, guilt gnawed at Mia Dolan for dragging Frank Lucas into this. Her voice softened, "There's nothing between us, really. But before she could finish, he gripped her chin, his warning chilling. Each of Tommy DeVito's rages felt like being swallowed whole. The elevator doors opened onto an office, revealing another woman, Regina George, Tommy DeVito's ex-lover. What was happening? Mia Dolan felt trapped in a tiresome, tense love triangle with Tommy DeVito and Regina George. Regina George glared at Mia Dolan. You followed him here. Mia Dolan could only mutter, I did not. Tommy DeVito, dismissive of the ensuing squabble, curtly dismissed Regina George and sat on the sofa, his gaze fixed coldly on Mia Dolan. Her disheveled hair and swollen lips only fueled his anger. Obsessed with Frank Lucas, he demanded, haven't you forgotten him yet? With a sudden, cinematic move, Tommy DeVito pulled her close, trapping her against him. Panic flared within Mia Dolan, but she fought to maintain composure. Her weak resistance was futile as he captured her lips, leaving her no escape. Just as things seemed to cross a line, a wave of nausea overcame her, and she vomited. Tommy DeVito's fury erupted like a storm, quickly replaced by concern at her pallor. Mia Dolan, at her limit, whispered, You're disgusting. At the hospital, the doctor diagnosed a mild concussion. Tommy DeVito's anger simmered. Troy Barnes, his friend, entered, taunting, couldn't keep your hands off her, could you? She's got a concussion. Tommy DeVito's face remained impassive. She's not some fragile doll. She's certainly not. She's a calculating, selfish, domineering woman. It's not too late to wake up, Troy Barnes pressed, but Tommy DeVito remained stubbornly blind, seemingly consumed by his obsession. Despite Troy Barnes's warnings about the wolf in sheep's clothing, Tommy DeVito simply smirked, claiming they were the same, and no one could interfere with her chosen path. They were like characters in a mythical drama, spouting profound-sounding nonsense. Mia Dolan, feeling the world suddenly turn gloomy like a horror film, decided to leave. But just as she stepped out of the mansion, it started pouring, the kind of bad luck that could ruin a whole day. Unfazed, she continued on, angrily muttering about Tommy DeVito the entire way. But after only 10 minutes, she had to turn back, and wouldn't you know it, Mr. Thorne's car suddenly appeared. Thinking she was saved, she instead ran into the cold Tommy DeVito, still busy with work on his laptop, completely ignoring her. Tommy DeVito slowly said, Don't misunderstand, I just suddenly remembered some company business. Mia Dolan didn't bother replying, leaning her head back against the seat, pretending to sleep. But he wouldn't leave her alone, another question popping out, Mia, why can you always piss me off yet I can't do anything about it? Mia Dolan was dumbfounded, unsure how to answer, while Tommy DeVito pinched her cheek, then bit her lip as if, joking. A strange atmosphere filled the car, a faint scent of mint and cigarettes, causing Mia Dolan to blush. It seemed like he didn't have to do much, just his proximity made her stiff, her cheeks red as tomatoes. Indeed, a little teasing was enough to make the atmosphere awkward. And Tommy DeVito was still Tommy DeVito, not giving her a moment's peace. Outside, the rain poured down. Inside the car, it was so warm that Mia Dolan blushed like a ripe apple, while Tommy DeVito acted as if nothing had happened, even though they had just argued like cat and mouse. She was angry, he was unforgiving, the two like opposing forces. But then, Tommy DeVito didn't hesitate to unveil the secret and suddenly teased her, making her so angry that she flung the car door open and rushed out into the downpour, bidding farewell like a wicked woman. She tried to maintain her arrogance, but a sudden kiss from him made her so annoyed she wanted to scratch his face. Back at her grandfather's house, things were even more tense when she overheard that Tommy DeVito was the one behind her grandfather's company's troubles. She couldn't bear to face this truth, but remained silent, feigning composure. Sitting with her grandfather, she could only force a smile as he urged her to quickly find a boyfriend. But, where could she find a boyfriend now? Tommy DeVito was definitely not an option, because he had already rejected her in front of her grandfather. Could she find someone like Tommy DeVito? She could only smile bitterly, without tears. In the evening, old Mistress Lu cooked her favorite dish. After days of boxed meals on set, Mia Dolan felt revived. This must be the taste of family, she almost cried while eating. After a tiring day, with the rain drizzling, she leaned against the window, watching the scenery, feeling peaceful yet guilty for taking from others. Before she could finish crying, her phone rang. It was Frank Lucas, asking, "Are you okay?" The question alone was heartwarming, almost bringing her to tears. He even promised to pick her up the next morning, truly the perfect man. The next day, his car arrived. Mia Dolan wondered if he had woken up at dawn to buy porridge, as that place was always crowded, but Frank Lucas was always thoughtful, caring about every little detail. After breakfast, she felt like she was living in an old movie, everything back to the way it was. He was the boyfriend, she was the girlfriend, but suddenly a sports car sped past, startling her. Arriving at the set, Frank Lucas escorted her to the door before leaving, but not without a parting comment that made her blush, "Just wanted to look at you a little longer." Oh, so sweet. After a tiring day of filming, Mia Dolan could only unwind by grabbing a bite with her friends. But back at the hotel, things felt off. The other three seemed to ignore her, their conversations taking an uncomfortable turn. Director Carson started probing about her connection to WTD Entertainment, and Cersei Lannister, while pouring her a drink, seemed annoyed when she declined. It felt like a political game between powerful figures, and she just wanted to leave. While Mia Dolan was still trying to figure out what to do, Bella Lannister, always the one to go a bit too far, pushed another drink on her. "Drink this, and let's consider our little feud over." Mia Dolan, already feeling dizzy, figured finishing the drink would be her ticket out. But oh dear, after she drank it, her head spun, and she slumped onto the table. A bunch of bastards started acting up, Director Carson's eyes gleaming with some dark intent. But Cersei Lannister's final look was perplexing. She stood up, gave Mia Dolan a long look, and then left. Mia Dolan couldn't swallow this anger. Being pushed around by a newbie on set. This couldn't go unaddressed. After Director Carson harassed her, she decided to fight back, but the situation only escalated. She tried to push him away and call for help, but her phone shattered, and Director Carson aggressively advanced, even daring to try and kiss her. Just then, Mia Dolan felt dizzy, her legs weak. But as things were getting dire, thankfully, Tommy DeVito arrived just in time. He pulled her into his arms, his face ice cold, his eyes radiating a murderous aura as he glared at Director Carson. Director Carson, terrified, knelt down, not daring to move a muscle in Tommy DeVito's presence. After the dramatic scene, Tommy DeVito escorted Mia Dolan out of the hotel, but they ran into Frank Lucas at the entrance. Frank Lucas inquired with concern, but Tommy DeVito responded coldly and carried Mia Dolan to the car. Inside the vehicle, the tension began to subside. Though exhausted, she at least knew she was no longer in immediate danger. Back at his place, Tommy DeVito took her to the bedroom and threw her onto the bed in a rough manner, the tension still palpable. He smoked, his mood turbulent, and finally, after a long silence, he left. Mia Dolan lay there, relieved, but her sleep didn't last. When she woke up, Tommy DeVito continued his rough treatment, showing no restraint. Though she had no strength left to resist, she couldn't ignore the pain from his every move. In the morning, as Tommy DeVito was leaving, he tossed a contract towards Mia Dolan, coldly saying, "A contract for you." Those words made her ache all over, her body feeling like it no longer belonged to her. Tommy DeVito, cold and impatient, threw the contract in Mia Dolan's face, declaring he was letting her go and wanted nothing more to do with her. Mia Dolan, in disbelief, tried to process the situation while thinking about her family's company ties. Tommy DeVito assured her she was free to leave without worrying about the Cheen Corporation, as he wouldn't interfere anymore. She silently took the contract and left without a word, stepping out into the cold night. After leaving, she felt the end of their relationship was abrupt and unbelievable. Restless, she continued walking, reaching the inner city after an hour and a half without seeing Tommy DeVito. Back at the villa, Tommy DeVito watched her go, a quiet unease settling over him. His friend, Troy Barnes, jokingly ribbed him about the breakup, but Tommy DeVito remained uncomfortable. On set, Mia Dolan learned about the director's disappearance and Cersei Lannister's accident. She felt a prickle of unease, understanding Tommy DeVito's involvement, yet bewildered by the events. Later, Gatsby Lucas gave her flowers and a birthday invitation. Distracted, she promised to contact him later. Back at the Cheen residence, still feeling unsettled, Mia Dolan received a call from Wong about a new project. She rushed to meet him at the hotel, encountering Troy Barnes again. He taunted her, saying without Tommy DeVito's protection, without the boss, you're nothing. Mia Dolan insisted she could work independently, but couldn't deny her reliance on Tommy DeVito. In Wong's room, Mia Dolan met another producer, Li Shi, who was cold towards her. The contract discussion ended quickly. Leaving the hotel, she ran into Tommy DeVito and Regina George. He ignored her, passionately kissing Regina. George, leaving Mia Dolan stunned and uncomfortable. The scene was embarrassing and unbelievable. Mia Dolan shook her head, amused by the man who dumped her yesterday, now with Regina George. She thought, really, she was the one intruding on their relationship, so everyone was happy, right? The next morning, exhausted from lack of sleep, Mia Dolan prepared for Gatsby Lucas's birthday party. She wore a long, dark blue dress, heels, and light makeup. When her maid announced Mr. Gatsby Lucas was waiting, Mia Dolan smiled. She had a plan, to convince her grandfather she had a boyfriend to stop his pressure. Leaving the house, she looked radiant, attracting every glance. Gatsby Lucas couldn't take his eyes off her, his gaze full of emotion. Grandfather Cheen welcomed him, and Mia Dolan felt relieved he believed she had a boyfriend. Phew. Grandfather actually bought it, she thought. In Gatsby Lucas's car, she asked about the birthday party. He replied, it's my brother's birthday, but I invited you to get closer to you. Mia Dolan pouted silently, unhappy with her dull life. Arriving at Gatsby Lucas's house, she followed him inside, uncomfortable among strangers. He reassured her, don't be nervous, my brother is easygoing. But when Frank Lucas appeared, Mia Dolan recognized him, realizing it was his birthday, which she'd forgotten. The situation became awkward when Gatsby Lucas introduced her as his future sister-in-law. Blushing, she denied it. Frank Lucas looked at her tenderly and said, she's my first love. These words startled both Mia Dolan and Gatsby Lucas. Mia Dolan felt a pang of bitterness, while Gatsby Lucas couldn't help but feel awkward. To break the uneasy silence, Gatsby Lucas quickly suggested a walk. Mia Dolan felt strange, this reunion evoked a sense of nostalgia. But Gatsby Lucas couldn't hide his nervousness, and she, feeling flustered, tried not to overthink. As they were heading out, they unexpectedly bumped into a woman wearing large sunglasses and dressed in black. A sense of familiarity washed over Mia Dolan, causing her to stop, her eyes fixed on the strange woman. The woman simply smiled faintly and continued inside without a word. Mia Dolan was bewildered, wondering why this person felt so familiar. Gatsby Lucas stopped the car in front of the Cheen family home, his expression serious and somewhat apologetic. I'm sorry, he said, I'll treat you to dinner next time. Mia Dolan smiled softly and stepped out of the car, but Gatsby Lucas immediately called her back. What is it? She asked. Gatsby Lucas smiled, gently lifted her face, and whispered, what I said to your brother was true. I want to pursue you, marry you. Stunned, she pushed him away and laughed. Are you joking? Neither of them said anything more, and she quickly ran inside. Back home, she had just gone upstairs when her phone rang. It was a call from Frank Lucas. Yeah, he said, it's my birthday today. Can you have noodles with me? Mia Dolan remembered the times Frank Lucas used to cook longevity noodles for her for his birthday, but things were different now. Still, his weak voice softened her heart, and she agreed. Okay. Not long after, she hurried out, her heart pounding as she saw his familiar car. Frank Lucas stepped out of the car, smiled gently at her, and gently wiped the sweat from her forehead, making her feel a little embarrassed. Having noodles with her ex-boyfriend, was it strange? She was confused about where they stood in their relationship. As they ate, the atmosphere between them was quite tense. She chuckled softly. "What are you laughing at?" he asked. "Just thinking about before," she replied, "it seems like nothing has changed." Frank Lucas looked at her, his expression serious. Yeah, he asked, "Do you still want to be with me?" She was stunned, unable to believe the question. The answer wasn't easy, but finally, she hesitantly asked, "Why?" He simply smiled and replied naturally, "Because I like you." His answer left her confused and unsure what to do. Returning home, she saw Tommy DeVito's car parked outside. Her heart sank. She hadn't expected him to arrive right after she'd had noodles with Frank Lucas. Aunt Lee informed her that Tommy DeVito was playing chess with Old Master Cheen in the study. She entered and saw Tommy DeVito sitting comfortably, a slight smirk on his face as if he didn't care about anything around him. Mia Dolan walked over and poured tea, but as she offered it to Tommy DeVito, he grasped her hand tightly, refusing to let go. Mia Dolan felt her breath hitch as Tommy DeVito held her hand tightly, and she looked at him questioningly. In front of her grandfather, he dared to do this, how presumptuous. When he asked about Gatsby Lucas, she was furious but couldn't break free from his strong grip. "None of your business," she snapped. Old Master Cheen sternly reminded her to be polite, but Mia Dolan retorted angrily, "He's the one being impolite." She wrenched her hand free and hurried to her grandfather's side. Tommy DeVito just chuckled softly, continuing to play chess, feigning indifference, and letting Old Master Cheen win. The conversation circled back to Gatsby Lucas. When Old Master Cheen questioned her about their relationship, she gave a vague answer and quietly excused herself to bathe. In her room, while changing, she heard the door open. Turning, she saw Tommy DeVito standing there. Panicked, she quickly slipped her dress back on, trying to cover herself. Tommy DeVito said nothing, only advancing, pressing her against the wardrobe. His hot breath made her feel both scared and embarrassed. She looked at him, her voice low, "What are you doing in my room?" With a faint smile, he asked, "All dressed up, going on a date with who?" His gaze, sharp as sparks, intensified her fear. Angrily, she retorted, "What's it to you?" Tommy DeVito pressed closer, making her afraid to breathe too deep.